There were no games yesterday, but we'll use this opportunity to talk about everything else that's happening outside the NBA. We'll talk about Team USA and their flight to Japan, uh, who all are on it right now because everyone seems to be in safety protocols after COVID scare and whatnot. We'll also take a look at some of the fictional possible trade rumors and players who might not have a team, might not have their old team, might be shipped to a new team. All of that on today's episode. All right, then. So, yesterday's news, Zach Levine will not be flying to Japan because he's now placed in health and safety protocols. This is after Bradley Beal was pulled out of the team. And this is after Kevin Love was pulled out of the team.
This is after LeBron James, this guy, that guy, then that guy, then that guy, then Steph Curry, and all pulled themselves out even before the squad was announced.
Exactly. So the team is now in shambles, I would say. I know that they have some big names on it. They have Damian Lillard, they have Kevin Durant, they have Draymond Green, they have Tatum. They are some big names. They might as well get through the whole thing. But this must be one of the least prepared teams going into the Olympics, don't you? And don't you think, especially because the rest of the world seems to have caught up with the USA, and it's not going to be like you walk into the Olympics, you win the gold because you're the best team, and 90% of the NBA plays for the USA, and so it's no longer the case. I think that number has drastically reduced. Teams from all over the world are strong. If you look at Nigeria, they beat USA. Australia beat USA. And there is a certain Slovenia who's competing for the first time in the Olympics, and they have one player who could probably give this team a run for their money, Luka Doncic. Sure. Do you think this is the least prepared team to ever fly to the Olympics?
No, they've put out crap before also. This is nowhere close to this. The whole reason they had to do the dream team in 92 was because until then they were quite lax about it. They were just sending college players and just about anyone who was available and not winning. Right. So they said national pride. It's the land of the NBA. We've got to show them. And so they put out the strongest possible team that day. I don't think they've ever had a team that loaded in terms of ability and positions as they did in the dream team, right? So because Magic, okay, Larry Bird was at the end of his career, but they had Magic, they had Jordan, they had Pippen, they had Charles Barkley, they had Karl Malone, they had Robinson. It was just a stacked deck, Clyde Drexler and so on. Stockton even, right? Yeah, Stockton also. So that happened. And then they kind of got complacent again. I think 96, 2000 was 2004, nothing great. And then 2008 was when they took it seriously again. And again, they sent a stacked deck. So Kobe, Melo, Dwayne Wade, LeBron, Jason Kidd, Dwight Howard. Don't remember it's too early for AD. But a bunch of other role players. And they just, Bosch was there and they tore through the Olympics. Although a couple of teams did run them close, Argentina and Spain. And that was the first sign really of the world catching up right to their teams. And then 2012 they won it again, and then 16 was random squad. And then this year again, I think this year it's more of the COVID effect than anything else, that a lot of players, there was the bubble season and the shortened off season, and then a lot of injuries, an unprecedented number of superstar and all-star injuries this season. That kind of took a lot of players out of the equation.
Right.
Like, why Steph out of the equation? Because he wants to. This is the biggest sign that he really wants to go for it next year. Klay Thompson's back. He wants to be in the best possible shape to go all out to get the chip. That's the way I see this. And a bunch of players are either injured or returning from injury. So it's a weird year. And then whoever they do have is now out due to COVID safety protocols. Beal's out, Levine's out. I feel like they're going to send a team to the Olympics, and the first four out of their starting five, except for Kevin Durant, will be Ernie Johnson, Shaq, Charles Barkley, and Kenny Smith. And then there's Durant kind of waving for the ball, and nobody's able to even get it as far as him.
They do have a pretty decent team at the end of it, though. I mean, from the current NBA Finals, Devin Booker, Chris Middleton, and Jrue Holiday will join them. That will actually strengthen them quite a bit. But the rest of the team is still decent. If you look at the point guards, they have Lillard, they have Jrue Holiday, like I said, and Jeremy Grant. They have Booker, and now they have added Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson apparently impressed the team that they wanted him in the squad. So well deserved, I would say.
Impressed me in fantasy league, so I'm all in.
And they have Middleton, who will return, who will join the team. Tatum is there, Draymond Green to shore up the defense, and Bam Adebayo. And now JaVale McGee has been added. He has an opportunity to win a gold after his mother won it in 1984.
Yeah,
that's still, despite all these problems they're having off court with the health and safety protocols, I think there's still a strong team. Do you see any team running them close? They play France and Czech Republic in the group stages before they goes to the knockout. So
see, the travesty of the global basketball situation is, given how into the NBA I am
Mhm.
just like the folks in the NBA or the players there, in the sense that I have no clue what's out there outside the NBA. The
True.
only foreign players I know are the players who play in the NBA.
Yep.
I watched one non-NBA basketball match in my life. I mean, I'm not counting domestic leagues and stuff in India or college matches, but one competitive non-NBA basketball match. I was in Barcelona. I watched Barcelona play, I think, Getafe, who was the local team there. And that's about it. Right? And I knew nobody on the court. The only player that I could recognize in the arena was somebody sitting in the box behind me who was an ex, I think, Memphis Grizzlies or something player. But that's the state of world basketball. But it's catching up. So I could see a bunch of teams running them close. But I think what it's going to come down to, not getting into specifics that I don't fully know, is this is a great team full of still very good players. But they're going to play really competitive basketball. This is going to be like playoffs all the way through, from start to finish in the Olympics. And they're playing teams that play together in FIBA events, that train together, that a lot of players are regular national team players in addition to whatever domestic leagues they play. And then there are quite a few, a smattering of NBA good role players and some even starters. The problem is, when you don't play together, and everyone's just done this to death, right? When they don't play together, how can you expect them to be competitive? How can you expect them to win? The thing is, when you don't play together, it's all the little things when the competition gets tough that matters. Let's say there's a mercurial ball handler on the other team. He calls for a pick and roll. Now, depending on your team's composition and how they are squaring up, do you go under the screen or do you go around and chase the guy? And when you do that, at what point is your weak side help going to step up? At what point does somebody decide to double team? All of these are unspoken. These are stuff that you discover only after weeks and weeks of practice. And it becomes subconscious. You're processing this information and making decisions, each player on the field, in the larger context of how the team is set up. That's tough to emulate with a few days of practice or a couple of weeks of practice. Now, these are some of the smartest players in the world. So they'll still do a whole lot better than obviously lesser experienced folks from maybe some other countries. But a well-oiled machine with a bunch of role players that know how to coexist as a team will give them a lot of trouble. They'll still do all the individual stuff well. Like Kevin Durant in an ISO, there's nobody that can guard him. Lillard in the clutch, he's going to get those shots off. But those are how to decide tight games. But is it going to be a tight game by then?
Yeah.
All those half-court sets and all of those pick and rolls and all of those decisions on when to double team, when not to, when to foul, when not to, whom to give the ball to in what situation, off the ball movement. All of these things are not stuff you can recreate overnight. So now what you have is a very talented all-star team that's going to be great on highlight plays and ISOs and one-to-one matchups. But the moment the game shifts to a team-on-team matchup, like a half-court set, team ball, good off-the-ball movement, and they've got to defend that, you might start seeing some chinks. You might. And I mean, these, with the kind of players that they have their best bet of people just making adjustments on the spot, even without being prepared for it. It's still possible that they can be beaten. A well-oiled team full of role players and a few good players will always beat an eclectic blend of, or at least have a good chance to beat an eclectic blend of superstars.
And that's a good point because both the matches they lost against Nigeria and Australia, both were not close. So I think it was a close game. They would have found a way to, they would have figured it out how to come.
Right? Lillard will shoot from half court, whatever. But what do you do when it's not close, right?
All right, we'll keep a close eye on Team USA. But I also wanted to use this opportunity to talk about a player who has got me confused. Does the team need him? Does he need the team? Would he be a better fit in another team? Is he actually a good player? And I'm talking about Kyle Kuzma because it's the Lakers and I need to put this to you. Sure. Kyle Kuzma is on a $13 million contract. And here are some of the players who won in a similar range as Kyle Kuzma. Okay, Marcus Smart, Robert Covington, Terrence Ross, Joe Ingles, Norman Powell. And all of these 5 players I told, and if you add Kyle Kuzma to the list, would you put Kuzma 6th?
No, I won't actually. I really don't think Ingles is not all that much. He's on a good team. He looks good, but I think he's past his best years. So I'll put him above Ingles. That's about it.
Okay.
He's a better scorer than Covington, but Covington can defend like Kuzma never can. So
True.
it's debatable. None of those players it doesn't blow my mind, any of those names, except Marcus Smart.
Mm-hmm.
I think he deserves more, but all of the others are whatever. But Kuzma, let's talk about Kuzma. I don't grudge him the money he's paid either. I think in another team, in another setup, he's probably worth it, or maybe even some more. If he's the primary or secondary scoring option on a team, I think he can deliver. He's shown that when they've had a bunch of injuries, when LeBron wasn't on court that season with the back injury, Kuzma was putting up 37-point games, 40-point games. Why? Because again, it's the D'Angelo Russell effect. It's usage rate. You give him 30 shots in a game, he's going to get you points. Right. He is a good shooter, and he can catch those hot streaks, and he goes into heat check mode. He's a good defender, sort of. I think he's improved a fair amount, but only in a team setup. I don't think one-on-one he's like a Drew Holiday or whatever. And then he can give you rebounds. That's what Kyle Kuzma brings to the table. Now, what does he absolutely not bring to the table? He's not one of those mature. He's going to be the one of those sane voices in the locker room, calms everyone down, gets the team focused in the right direction. That's not him. Zero leadership. Maturity is not his thing yet. At least he's still kind of young. The other thing is decision making. Just not his forte. Just not his forte. You have a clutch game, couple of points lead. You're on a fast break. LeBron's right behind you. What do? Just give him the ball, move. Or great, if you have an opportunity, go for it. Take that shot. There you go. That's a decision to be made.
Right.
What does he decide? Neither of these two. Neither does he give it to LeBron, nor does he go make the shot because it's 2-on-1 and he can kind of fake a pass and go or any other way to finish under the rim. He decides to fancy pants lob it off the top of the glass or some such crap. Sometimes misses the glass altogether. Sometimes lobs it so hard it goes back to half court.
Yep.
Horrible decision making. And like you and I watch football. This was like when Aaron Lennon first came onto the scene. He has all the pace in the world, all the tricks in the world. He'll get past every defender, get to the side. All he has to do is cut the ball across for an easy finish to the striker.
Right.
He's going to blow it. He'll either smack a defender, he'll hit it out of bounds, he'll hit it over the striker's head, whatever. But he's not going to make that pass. Anything except the right pass, right decision. It's a bit like that. It's frustrating with Kuzma. And so he's out. I think he's out. You don't screw up like that on a LeBron team and survive. It's kind of like army posting. You piss off the general, you get tossed to some, remote location.
Cleveland or Detroit. Detroit is actually a pretty good destination now that they're.
It's great for him actually, but I think it might be a positional clash with Jeremy Grant because now I guess Kyle Kuzma is a 4.
Well, you have Cade Cunningham, who's probably the number 1 pick coming in. Yep. So I don't think. I mean, I think Detroit is a team that is building. I don't think Kuzma fits in there. Cleveland, nobody cares. Might fit in there. Orlando Magic is rebuilding. He could fit in there.
Yeah. But if Kuzma has to go out, it has to be a trade, right? Right now, that's the only exit route for Kuzma. Yeah. So I can't see a 1-to-1 trade happening with Kuzma. Maybe someone. I can't think of any. But
all of these 5 players I told, wouldn't the Lakers love to have someone like Marcus Smart in their
sure.
team?
Yeah, sure.
Wouldn't you love to have Robert Covington who can defend like that? Wouldn't you not like to have Joe Ingles in the team instead of Kuzma because he's more trustworthy than Kuzma, I would say? No, I would.
Nobody on that list except Marcus Smart. Robert Covington only for one reason. There's already Wes Matthews. He's very, very similar. It's pretty much the same guy. Maybe Rocco has a little more strength and size. Size also I'll have to check, but strength for sure. So none of those guys are that exciting except Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart probably the best 3-and-D option in the game right now. If you're talking about bench borderline starter. He's probably the best at that. He's another Jay Crowder with much better defense. That's the way I'd box him. I think Kuz, the best way that the Lakers could get value out of this is bundling him in a big trade with a few other pieces. Right. They'll have to sign and trade Schroeder. They've put themselves in that position. I don't think they want him, but they have to sign and trade or they lose that value.
Yeah.
So sign and trade Schroeder, throw in Kuz. That's you're looking at 32, 33 million in cap space, maybe more. Toss in a Harrell or I like Harrell, but it doesn't look like Vogel has him in his core plan. So then why waste a talent? He's a great player. He can help somebody else win.
Right.
So kind of bundle all these guys, go for broke. I don't know, Lillard. I don't know if I don't think the Lakers have very many picks left after the AD trade, but go for broke, make a run for Lillard or something like that. I feel like they'll go big in the window of the season because they have an aging LeBron, a not very fit AD. I'm sure they would have had a come to Jesus meeting with AD where, get yourself in shape or you're shipped at the end of next season, right? This is unacceptable for a player of your caliber.
Stephen A. Smith is already talking about ship AD off to Portland and get in David.
Yeah, of course. ESPN's always talking about shipping everyone, and then whenever they get bored, it's is Aaron Rodgers leaving Green Bay every season until he actually does leave Green Bay.
All right, we'll see where Kuzma stays this season. We'll see if he continues to be a role player at the Lakers or if he'll rise up to be a star at a new team. All about that we'll keep continuing to discuss. But that's all on today's episode, and I'll catch you tomorrow after the Game 6 of the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns.
I can't wait, man. Hopefully we have a champion. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm backing Bucks to win it, but I wouldn't complain if it goes to Game 7.
Correct. I like the Bucks, but I think Game 7 is a lot more exciting, even if it comes at the cost of a chip for the Bucks. I mean, I like Giannis, I like the Bucks, but we're not.
I agree. I mean,
I live with it.
I agree. I mean, Game 7 is more important for us. We'll see where that goes. All right, then. Bye.
Peace.